In June 2025, the Canada Liberal government introduced Bill C2, the Strong Borders Act, and in October, they introduced another new bill, C12, the Strengthening Canada's Immigration System and Borders Act. Now, these new bills propose strict new asylum rules in Canada, and in this video, we'll break down exactly what C2 and C12 would do, why they are being rushed now, what Canadians think, and what it means for you. So grab something to write with because you might need it. So first of all, what are Bills C2 and Bill C12? The government says it is time to modernize the asylum system by deterring bogus claims and speeding up processing times, and that's why they created these bills. Bill C2 is the Strong Borders Act, and among other things, it proposes a one-year rule for asylum claims. Essentially, refugee claims made more than 1 year after arriving in Canada on or after June 24, 2020 won't be referred to the Refugee Board. In short, if you live in Canada a year before applying, your claim will be thrown out. There's also the 14-day rule, which says that claimants who crossed the US-Canada border irregularly become ineligible if they wait more than 14 days after crossing to apply for asylum. Thirdly is the cancellation powers. Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, the IRCC, the officers will gain power to suspend or cancel visas and applications if it's in the public interest. Finally, the bill also expands police surveillance over anyone in Canada, and it unlocks data sharing with foreign governments. Now let's talk about Bill C12. This bill is aimed at strengthening Immigration System and Borders Act. It was introduced October 8, 2025 by the Public Safety Minister. The government calls it a way to enable Parliament to pass key priorities and fast-track parts of Bill C2. It bundles asylum and border security reforms, and just like Bill C2, it would make certain claims ineligible to protect against sudden increases in claims. It keeps the 1 year and 14-day eligibility bars. This bill also specifies faster processing by allowing IRCC to specify exactly what information a claimant must provide to more quickly refuse abandoned or withdrawn claims and to hold hearings even if a claimant is outside Canada. The bill also empowers ministers to cancel or refuse any immigration applications on broad public interest grounds. This covers visas, work permits, even PR applications. Now, both bills claim to speed up claim processing and focus resources on real refugees. The government argues that this is necessary given the recent spikes in refugee claims, but some critics see them as draconian changes to the current refugee law. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Some people are asking, why the fuss about the asylum claims anyway? Well, to keep things in perspective, I will give you some statistics. Canada's in-Canada system handled 91,710 refugee claims in 2022, and this was a 44% jump from the previous high in 2019. 43% of those 2022 claimants crossed illegally, mostly at Rossham Road, rather than at official ports. In 2023, claims climbed even higher. The government reported almost 173,000 claims in 2024. Honestly, if we continue at this pace, the system would buckle. So what about the backlog? By the end of 2024, there were 272,440 refugee claims pending a decision. With such a backlog, an asylum case can take 3 to 4 years or more to resolve under the current rules. The provinces are not finding this funny at all. Quebec saw the lion's share of these refugees. There was a 99% of irregular crossings into Quebec in 2022. In total, about 60% of all Canadian asylum seekers in 2022 came through Quebec. Everything was stretched. Local services, shelters, healthcare, schools, you name it, everything. In 2022, the top countries for irregular entries were Haiti, Turkey, and Colombia. Mexico has become the single largest source of all asylum claimants, mostly from airports, with projected 2022 claims over 15,000. More recently, in 2024 and 2025, IRCC reports that Bangladesh, India, Nigeria, and Mexico dominate at inland offices, while Haiti, Colombia, and Venezuela lead at the US border. Put simply, Canada went from tens of thousands of claims a year pre-pandemic to well over 100,000 claims per year. This surge, driven partly by global crisis and US policy shifts, has led Canada government to say, we need to do something or the system will collapse. Let's talk about who is coming to Canada as refugees. That is the top countries of origin of these asylum claimants. I know I already mentioned the countries earlier, but I'm just going to touch on them with a little bit more details, from the largest numbers to the smallest numbers. The first one is Mexico. Now, before the visa rule change in 2023, Mexico was the #1 overall. Then we have the United States. They easily cross in from the ports, but the number has gone down from about 165 per day in early 2023 to about 12 per day by mid-2025. And then we have Haiti, Colombia, and Venezuela. These Caribbean and Latin American countries are now the top sources for land border arrivals. Many of them are fleeing instability, notably the Haitians, and they are often qualified for a family exception under the US-Canada Safe Third Country rules. Next is Bangladesh, India, and Nigeria. Canada has observed a rise in asylum claims by citizens of these populous countries, mostly made by visitors and students who are inside Canada. We also have Turkey, Pakistan, and DRC. In short, the picture is diverse, and critics worry that these bills, with their strict rules, may not be able to distinguish between someone who is fleeing persecution or someone who is abusing the system. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you can tap that like button just about now, please do it. So, not surprisingly, these bills have brought up some reactions and debates, and we're going to talk about that next. Opinions really are split. Supporters of the bill are saying that it's good because it will bring in security and fairness, but the opponents of the bill are saying that it is cruel and overreaching. Public Safety Minister Gary Anandesangare said that Bill C12 advances key legislative changes to keep borders safe. Conservative MPs and some premiers agree. Ontario's Premier Doug Ford and Quebec's Francois Legault have both pressured Ottawa to clamp down on Roseham crossings. On the other hand, refugee advocates, legal experts, and opposition MPs are alarmed, calling this one of the most serious threats to civil liberties in years, noting that it would deny hearings entirely to refugees from the United States and block applications from those who have been in Canada over a year. Amnesty International warned that C2 threatens the right to seek asylum. They argue that C12 does not fix anything. They point to unintended side effects, which could include things like more people evading Canada's system entirely, clogging the courts with charter challenges, or pushing asylum seekers into poverty and homelessness. Critics also point out Canada already had alternatives. We could expand legal sponsorship, speed up PR applications for genuine refugees, or even build refugee camps near the border. But what are everyday Canadians saying? Public opinion is mixed. Some fear uncontrolled migration and they support tougher rules. Others are moved by refugee stories and they question why we should deny them the opportunities to seek asylum in Canada. Media interviews show immigrant and faith groups criticizing the bill as being un-Canadian. In Parliament, debate has been heated. Critics accuse the government of bundling unrelated powers into omnibus legislation, while the government accuses critics of wanting open borders. But one thing is clear. These bills have taken Canada into a highly unusual territory, tightening asylum rules beyond any changes in recent decades. Despite all this, the government points out that some asylum system reform is needed, and the reasons are not far-fetched. And well, to be fair, these bills do walk a fine line. Canada clearly needs some immigration fixes. The backlogs are real, and public patience is very thin. These bills seem to assume that most refugee claimants are abusing the system, but in reality, many are genuine refugees, simply overwhelmed by delays. A fair approach might have been more nuanced, like targeted screening of suspicious cases, faster integration support, and international pressure on the root causes. Instead, this in-out blacklist mentality could end up harming the very people that Canada has traditionally sheltered. I have made some friends who came here by fleeing turmoil and persecution. Honestly, would I have wanted Canada to turn them away? Would you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. So, what's the timeline for these bills anyway? Let's see a screenshot. In June 2025, Bill C2 was introduced, the first reading in the House of Commons. It is currently under debate. On October 8, 2025, Bill C12 was introduced. This is in the first reading now. It was explicitly designed to ensure that some C2 measures pass quickly, letting the MPs take more time on others. The bills must pass second reading, committee review, and voting in the Commons and the Senate. The government has stated urgency, but the opposition and public consultations could influence amendments. If these bills are passed, most of the provisions will take effect by law. Some with retroactive elements, example, the one-year bar applies to claims dating back to 2020. It remains to be seen if the government pushes for early enforcement or if they wait until the laws clear Parliament. It's your turn. Do you think this is fair or necessary? These are huge changes that are affecting real people's lives. On the one hand, Canada has sovereign right to secure its border and, of course, to manage migration. On the other hand, though, asylum law is explicitly humanitarian. Denying a hearing without examining merit sounds harsh, especially if it catches someone who truly needs help. The word refugee implies an urgent right to safety. Could Canada instead expand legitimate pathways rather than narrowing them down? Ultimately, it comes down to values. Is Canada willing to admit we have too many people fleeing to us for help and put up barriers? Or can we balance our laws with empathy? I find myself uneasy about blanket bans. For me, the fairness test is, would we want someone to do the same to a loved one in desperate need? I suspect that many Canadians share this conflict. Perhaps better solutions exist than closing the door altogether. I don't know, but now it's on Parliament to decide, and we all have a stake in this conversation. What do you think? Drop a comment below with your own views. Do these bills feel like common sense, or do they feel like a breach of Canada's heart? Let's discuss.